This is going to be City Council meeting for City of Port Richey, Tuesday, October 13, 2020. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Lord for our invocation.
Thank you, sir. It's not on. Thank you. Lord, we just come seeking your partnership for the city, Lord. We just ask, Father, for the wisdom concerning the things, the business tonight, Lord. We just thank you for wisdom on the purchase of the vehicles. And, Lord, the surplus things would just be something that would bring value to the city. And, Lord, give them wisdom as they decide on opening up City Hall and opening up the city from the pandemic. And, Lord, for the membership renewals, the boards, Lord, we just pray that you choose those people that walk in love and peace and pray for your wisdom. So, Lord, tonight as we gather together, let's be mindful and humbly just thank you, Lord, that you want this city to be greater than we even understand. So we just ask your blessing upon the mayor, the business tonight, and, Lord, protect our firefighters, protect our police department. Lord, let your security keep our city, and we thank you for it, Father, in the name of Jesus.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor William Dittmer. Here. Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman Tom McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager Leonard Sossaman. Here.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve both sets of minutes from 3 weeks ago.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. At this time, I want to open up commentary from the general public. I'm going to start with Mr. Mueller. Welcome to the podium. I just ask that you take your hat off if you're going to come up to the podium and speak, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Take the hat off?
Yeah.
Is that better?
We can't. We don't want to have hats up here. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Just a couple of observations. When is the next water report going to be published? And I'd be curious to see what the schedule is for that. Also, I copied each of you. Don't know if you received the email about a week or two ago about trailer parking. Anybody receive that? Okay. Basically, for lack of, I know we had some trailer parking issues down there at the ramp and trying to resolve how do we turn that into a revenue source for Nick's Park, and Tarpon Springs looks like they've got a solution by permitting trailers parked within the city, okay? This is a bigger issue. It probably needs to be maybe relooked at. How do we address, people parking on private property? If you own a trailer in the city, maybe this is an opportunity to collect some money there. We just went through a big effort completing a golf cart ordinance for probably 100 golf carts and yielding about $5,000 annually. If we look at this from trailers and RVs, that could possibly be 3 to 4 times that amount. Just an idea, something we ought to think about. Looking for really a win-win scenario that would allow us to collect some sources and possibly utilize that for improvements down at Nick's Park and the other parks as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. There's 2 other people that are signed up, and then I'm going to open it up to anybody else who wants to speak. Mr. Grimes, welcome. Come on up to the podium.
Mike Grimes, 5440 Quist Drive, Port Richey. I want to address 4 things. Old Post Road, 30 miles an hour. The speeding's becoming excessive to where, you got kids that play on that street, you got people that bike, walk along the sidewalk as far as they can up to Gildog, and then you have to walk in the street. I don't know what citations or how many have been issued in the last 90 days, but I can tell you each day there's definitely somebody that is exceeding the speed limit. I drove down Congress this morning on my way to work. That's 25 miles an hour. So if you look at Congress Street in Newport Richey, that's in a residential community, that's 25. We're at 30 in a smaller street. So I think 30 miles an hour should be something that's looked at a future meeting possibly, where we could do a reduction on that limit. And also for the police chief, with that increase in speeding, could we increase the presence there? I mean, I know we've got people that are also parking on the sidewalk along Old Post Road. They're fishing on a pond on the left side, right there at Quist. So if you have people parking at Quist on the sidewalk and you have speeders, they have to walk now around those cars. Puts those pedestrians at risk. Last thing we want is somebody hit by a car, especially a kid. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one last person that was signed up. Pastor Lord, welcome. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Leonard Lord, I pastored 8114 Lee Oakhead Avenue. Again, I just want to thank the city for their faithfulness to pick up the brush. It's a blessing. Those pepper plants are all growing, and I believe we're going to get ahead of them, so we'll have more property to use. So I just want to thank Sean and the team for that. Also, our Cure Fest was good. We had 15 projects. About 60 people showed up under the tent, had some Trinity College students, and actually, let's see, we had Council Bill Araka's team there. They kind of joined us, wanted to work together with the pastor. So 15 projects. Ours was, we had a shut-in couple here just out of the city limits. We cleaned their property up, mowed in bushes. But anyway, in the future, if we can help, we got people just want to serve, particularly those that can't do it. Also, if you have, did everybody get a flyer? Mm-hmm. For years, we've had the neighborhood fish fry. What that is really trying to just have a family time opposed to Halloween. What we do is we gather candy together and make sure all the children get a bag. And now that we have our tent up, if the weather's good, we're looking to have it outside with what's going on with the virus and things. So you can read it and see. It's the 28th from 6 to 8 o'clock. Come meet somebody in the city, and it is a family neighborhood fish fry. So we invite you to come, and you'll see that's it's 6. Usually we're done before 8, but we've got 6 to 8. So just want to just give you an invite. Also for Thanksgiving, every third Wednesday, I believe it would be the 18th, we have a resource where some have been from the city to our luncheon. Actually, the 18th, we'd really like to honor the council for Thanksgiving. If you could be here, we'll be getting more information. But we meet a couple of times a week to pray. One of those is Wednesday at noon at our fellowship hall, and every third Wednesday we network, like Commissioner Mariano came to share some things pastors could share with people in need from the pandemic and so forth. So we'll be getting you more information, but we really wanted to honor y'all at Thanksgiving for that luncheon, and also just wanting to join together for helping for Christmas. I was hoping I was supposed to connect with Linda tonight, but anyway, those are things coming up. I'll be getting you more flyers, but if you can join us, be great. We'll have plenty of fish. And just as a spiritual leader, I just want to leave you with this thought from Psalms 119, 165. It's helped me. It says, "Great peace have they that love thy law, the law of the Lord, and nothing shall offend them." And that's a good place to live, to love God's truth to a place that you love it, put your hope in it, and nothing offends you. So Lord bless you, and thank you for all you do. Lord
Thank you,
bless
Pastor Lord. That's all that I had signed up, but there's multiple people here. I want to see show of hands. Pat Rogers, come on up. Welcome.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I just have a minor issue that I need help with the police department on. I drive down Sunglow.
Which street?
I think it's Sunglow,
Sunglow,
from
okay.
19 down to, And there's a basketball hoop sits in the edge of the road out in the street that's all black. And when I'm going to the food pantry, it's dark when I'm driving down that road. I know it's there, but if somebody's coming towards me, I can't see it, and I would hit it if I didn't know it was there. So I'm just wondering if somebody could put reflector tape or something on it. It's a minor thing, but not that I don't want the kids to be able to play, but it's out in the street every day.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Anyone else, public? Seeing no hands, this time we're going to move on to, we'll open it to comments from city manager, and I'm going to go to Mr. Sossaman for any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple reminders, if you will. One is, I think you're all aware now that I think everyone has agreed unilaterally, if you will, for a workshop on Tuesday, the 20th of this month with the Port Authority Board. And I'm going to make an assumption, and you can tell me whether it's right or wrong, that the meeting will be at 7 o'clock, or what's it? The meeting on the with the Port Authority Board, the workshop at 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 o'clock on the 20th, which is a Tuesday. As a matter of fact, it's 1 week from today. So that's a reminder. The other one is that.
Pardon me, did you say Tuesday or Thursday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The second one is that you are definitely aware and will remember that the day after that we will have the bid opening in these chambers for the dredge project for channels 1 and 26A. Those have been published now on BidNet for just about a month, and we've had a couple of addenda just to answer some questions from some of the potential bidders, prospective bidders, I guess is the right word. So hopefully we're going to get several bids, and hopefully one of them will be, at least one will be one that we can accept and move forward with that project. So maybe Reverend Lord will say a few kind words and a prayer toward that end and help us to achieve a goal. Last, an issue that came up, Mr. Mueller mentioned the parking issue, and I know there's another gentleman in the room tonight, Mr. Grimes, who has sent several emails. I forwarded several to you about parking of boats as well as cars and driveways and front yards and so forth. So that's just an issue I wanted to make you aware of that's coming to us from another citizen, so that if at some point in time you want to address it in a formal setting, just let me know, and we'll set it up on an agenda. With that, we've got a number of other items to address tonight, so I'll hush for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Sossaman. This time I'm going to start with my left and go to Vice Mayor, Mr. Dittmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I want to start out with is remind everybody as November 3rd comes up, it was about a year ago that our state representative, Amber Mariano, tried to take our city away from us. I want everybody to remember that when it comes time on November 3rd. They would put out our police, our fire, and all our city workers out of work. And I just ask that you remember that when you go to the ballot. Thank you.
Is that all you have? Okay. I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Sorrell at this point.
The parking issue that Mr. Mueller and Mr. Grimes are involved in, that has come up in the past. I think maybe it would be a good idea if maybe we put it on the agenda and do some discussion about maybe possibly making some changes that would assist our residents and would, maybe make things easier for everybody. So that's my only opinion right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrell.
I have a couple items. One, I second Ms. Sorrell's request for a discussion point for the parking, boat trailer parking in front of houses, as well as in front of houses, as well as over by the boat ramp. So I think that's a very good idea to put it on a discussion for a future meeting. Another item that I think we should also possibly discuss is Old Post Road. I know we've had a number of complaints already on Old Post Road. We have a future point, I believe March, I think, is where we're kind of gearing towards putting some speed bumps. Speed bumps on a 30-mile-per-hour road doesn't work, so we may want to strictly consider lowering the speed on that area down to 25 miles an hour, or else people are going to have all kinds of complaints and problems with a speed bump on a 30-mile-an-hour road. So I suggest maybe we will, before that time, we also want to discuss lowering that speed limit. The other item was brought to my attention by a couple citizens as well and I'd like to start out by saying I think Mr. Matthews is doing an excellent job. However, the RFP for the legal services was never publicly put out to bid on this project. It was more assigned. And I would like the city manager to look into that, confirm that, and see what the status is concerning that. Because, and then Jim, I think you're doing an excellent job. I just have concerns if something is appointed rather than a public RFP to a public, I guess consultancy would be the term for it. So I would like that looked into as well.
Okay. And I wanted, just for a point of clarification, you talked about kind of two separate issues in terms of the parking. Are you talking about boat parking just in someone's private property or boat parking for the general public?
And you are correct. I did kind of combine.
So I was trying to figure out what you're talking about.
I kind of combined the two in once. I believe in both issues were brought up separately. One was for boat parking in public residences in front of the house versus right now our code is that it must be parked on the side of the house or not viewable from the street. One suggestion was, and we should bring it up for a discussion overall, do we allow boats parking in front of, or trailer parking, I should say, in front of houses? Because I see it, quite frankly, all over the place. So we either need to enforce it strictly or we need to change and alter the ordinance to accommodate reality.
Can I stop you at that point? By consensus, can we agree to put that on the next agenda item?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, okay. So, but that's a different issue
And then we have a separate
Okay.
issue of the
Okay.
permitting brought up by Mr. Mueller for some type of trailer boat permitting to use Nix Park or the parking around Nix Park.
Okay.
I know I combined them all,
I
but
got you. Okay.
sometimes I think faster than I speak,
Okay.
or speak faster than I think.
I just wanted some clarification.
Correct.
Okay. Is that
That was
what
it.
you- Okay.
I have a couple things. One, back in that November 3rd, a year ago, as we were on the hot seat, I believe that committee agreed about doing an audit. And we've started one, correct? Or they started one? Is there any update on that?
Yes, sir. There is one that's underway. I think I arrived on the scene here back about June 24th, June 27th. And one of the first days I was here, Mr. Lupo, as he was departing, we had a conference call. We were fortunate that Jim came in as that call began. And since that time, I think I'm pretty correct in saying that we've had several written requests for information. A lot of it is based on policies and procedures to either discover or prevent conflicts of interest, those types of things. And of course, we have researched all the files. I've got another request right now with a little more information. Some of it also deals with the turnover of this board and staff over the last, since I guess about 2016. As to who had what position at what time, because there's also filings of certain forms that have to be done for ethics, as well as other things like the CRA itself. And so we're still going forward with it. So I know that it's at least 3 months into it from my perspective. Prior to that, Jim White can add something to it, but that's kind of a quick down and dirty thumbnail synopsis, if you will, sir.
Mr. Sossaman kind of came 2 months into it. So, yeah, the state legislature voted. They requested that there be an audit of the CRA. There was 7 other cities that had similar audits, not just CRA, but audits of the entire city, et cetera. I presume that they're trying to get this done for the next legislative session. They interviewed numerous people at City Hall. I know they interviewed Mr. Lupo and others here. I know the Finance Department, even before Mr. Sossaman got here, provided voluminous information concerning figures and things. They're doing a vigorous investigation, I guess it's the only thing I could tell you at this point. I suspect that they'll be concluding that by the end of the year and, you know, for the next legislative session. So we have no feedback in terms of what they're going to do.
So there's really no timeline. We're at their mercy.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes, but I would tend to think that for the next legislative session, they'd want to have a report at minimum, if not a decision, what they're going to do with the, and remember, they're auditing the CRA, the state legislature could do anything. That's about it. So I suspect they'll do something after the first of the year, and they'll probably, from some of the inquiries we're getting now, I suspect they're getting near the end. That's just guessing.
And just for clarification, it's just the CRA that our city received the audit for, wasn't the entire city in terms of just general funds and other funds?
The audit was just specifically for the CRA. However, it's the state legislature which can vote to do anything they want with the city. I highly doubt if it's beyond that, but the subject of the audit and the investigation is just the CRA.
For this audit, the notice that I had, that's what it said.
Yes.
Right, correct. Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure it hadn't expanded since I've read
No, it hasn't expanded at all.
Okay.
And then the other item I had, just more out of curiosity, on the website for the city for September, there was an announcement of one of our wells had a slightly high concentration of PFOS, and in subsequent testing below the concern levels. Are we monitoring that one well?
Yes, sir, we are. What it was is we have DOH, Department of Health. They do a biannual inspection of all our wells, including our monitoring well. Well 8, from what I understand, last year we had one that actually did the same thing, had a false positive. The reason this was put on the website mainly, besides for the public, we didn't want to scare anybody. There's nothing wrong with the water. We had Department of Health come back out and retest, and we also had a private contractor come out and test. They polled at separate days, roughly 72 hours apart. They both came back with the same findings. Department of Health and DEP mandated that we did put something out stating that we did have a test positive on a well, but it was, the state is 0.003, and when we tested was 0.007. And it was a pulse. They can't explain how that pulled, considering these wells pretty much pull from the same aquifer. And when they retested it a month later, we were actually well below 0.003.
Any plans to do it again in the near future, making sure that it maintains that?
It'll be pulled. Right now, I believe it's 4 months. DOH does it biannually, and we monitor. At the plant, we actually do monthly testing at the plant before what comes into our treatment plant and what goes out for residents. That's tested monthly. The DOH was done. We paid for that, and we paid for the external. So we're roughly 2 months in from the initial Department of Health test. So they, like I said, they do it every 6 months. So we're about January they're going to test again.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
And then I just had kind of one item that I was kind of focused on that's kind of off track from what everyone else was talking about. One of the things that the city just went through is the budget process. One of my concerns is, having to raise taxes. And I think that next year we can do better, but we need to start now as a city. So I had some different requests. I wanted kind of department heads to go as you go through the year to see what we can do to either save money in terms of cutting some costs to help with next year's budget. Number two, or whether or not budget money can be expended from other funds other than the general fund, as opposed to and into either utility, or if there's impact fees or something else that are restricted funds. And that's really my goal, for one of my goals for this year, is to be able to shift some of the expenses that we have as a city away from our general fund and into more specific funds where we have a lot more in terms of surplus, in terms of money that we carry over. And I think one of the things that we talked about during the budget process in order to help us do that is potentially hiring someone that can come in and look at the budget and the line items and suggest maybe some things that are in general fund can be shifted over to, for example, utilities or stormwater or police impact or fire impact or what have you, depending on the various departments. And I didn't know if we're able to explore that, or if there's anything that we can do with that.
We have been looking, I have discussed, actually some things coming up to you in the near future are going to be from some of those restricted fund areas, particularly some of the ones that are of the water and sewer nature, because we've got some infrastructure that is becoming quite old and needs to be replaced. We can also look at vehicles and those types of things that we're discussing and replacing those areas. What I have done is I'm waiting on a proposal back from a company now to do what's called cost allocation, which would help us in that area. Didn't mean to hide from Mr. McClary over there. The podium's just sitting directly between us, but so we are looking into exactly what you're talking about, finding ways, and then also ways to not spend. Sean's been very upfront, as have the other departments. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're going to be bringing to you soon is a little bit different twist on that. Is Dallas is here, and we've just received back a report on looking at our fee structure in his area, and we're going to be bringing that to you in the future. So that should help with some revenues, and also we're looking into a water rate study, if you will, because there are certain things that we just do that have never really been charged, and so that would all be like something you could pick and choose from in terms of what you would like to see done.
Very well, thank you. I appreciate it. And go ahead.
I was just going to mention that lends itself perfectly to what we discussed previously about the CIP. Start putting in those capital improvement projects into the system as we're going forward. I think that'll help us with where our money is going as well.
Yes, sir, it will. And then also, we won't confuse the CRA projects with the regular general fund type of CIP projects. So we'll keep those separated,
Keep them separate,
if you will.
right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone else has touched on everything I was going to talk about, so I didn't have anything else. The only other thing, I guess, in general comments that I was going to raise before we get to the council business is the last item for council business was the city manager search discussion. I wanted to know if we can handle that first in terms of council business, and then work our way down with the rest of it. And I didn't know if anyone was opposed, or by consensus if we can do it that way. Because I know we were working with Colin Basinger. He's in a different time zone, so if we have to reach out to him for any reason, it'll be much easier if it's at the top of the council business than towards the end. I didn't know if anyone had any opposition or any reason not to. We can't switch it around.
I don't think we're in need of Colin at this point, especially we do have more information to go through, and personally,
Yeah.
I found that very voluminous stuff to go through.
I just didn't want to call him real late if we get to it towards the end.
We could just bump that to another.
Okay. Well, I
mean, I don't think there's anything really that we would be contacting him about. He's laid out fairly well our selection process. He's also, I think, laid out fairly well the path forward that, I think a very good path forward for decision making. I don't see any reason to call him, but
okay.
I leave it to others. So.
Well, I'll leave the item where it is then, if we're not going to be reaching out to him. That was my only concern. And we'll address it when we get to it then.
I'm giving everyone incentive to get through the other stuff.
Okay. And that's all I had. So with that, I wanted to move on to the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item up will be, first item on council business will be the approval of purchase of 2 F-250 vehicles for the utility department. I was going to pass it over to Mr. Sossaman.
Yes, backed by popular demand, particularly from our Public Works Utilities Director, is the acquisition, if you will, of these 2 F-250s. I think Councilman McCleary asked us at the last time. The sheet is on there that shows that it is a piggyback off of the Florida management contract. That is 2 fully equipped ones like we would use them. There are 2 others on there for your edification from other, from suppliers, if you will. Alan J, I believe, is one of them. And let's see, what's the other one? Is it Duval Ford? And if you take the Alan J one, which is not fully equipped, if you go back into the sheets behind us, you can see the Florida management contract that we're using for the piggybacking. I think it's line item 72 there that shows that reflects the vehicles that we're looking to buy. And I would like to echo our Public Works Utilities Director's recommendation and that you approve it for acquisition.
Thank you. I was going to open it up for discussion and or motion amongst council at this time.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 2 F-250 vehicles for the utility department.
I'll second.
Before we go any further with this, I'm looking for my list. I think there were some folks that may have been signed up. Mr. Mueller, come on up. Thank you, by the way, with the hat. I appreciate it.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. My main concern is we're charging ahead, buying stuff, and we haven't done an inventory of what the heck we own, what the condition is, what the useful life is, where do we see it being replaced at what point in time, what's happening with the vehicles that are, if there are any, being targeted to be replaced. I think there's a lot of questions. Not necessarily that we don't need this. I think we probably do, but I would like to see you guys challenge some of this stuff rather than rubber stamping it without saying, hey, why do we need it? What's it going to be used for? What happens with the remainder of things? How many other vehicles do we have sitting parked? Are they running? How many miles are on these vehicles? Those kinds of things help form a decision process, and I think it'd be useful information for all of you to make that decision with. Those are just my observations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Mr. Mueller was the only one that signed up, but I'm open for anyone that, by show of hands, not
Actually,
see.
I want to tag on something too before.
Back to the council, yes, of course.
One, I wanted to say I'm very happy with the presentation, the way it was, as far as the pricing goes, the explanation, kind of queuing off, and I was going to kind of mention this before we went to motion on it, but the summary for the utility truck purchase I think was very good. It explained why we did it, what our other options were. I think I would also like to see in future major purchases, you know, kind of what Mr. Mueller was saying, a justification for that. Why do we need this? One, for transparency for our citizens, because then this goes out and they can see, okay, as a standard citizen, I can say, all right, well, we have 2 aging trucks. They are towards the end of their 9-year useful life, something along those lines. And that gives a good description to citizens and everyone else why we're making these major purchases and how we're spending their money. I know whenever, in my other life, whenever I have to make a major purchase, I have to put together a justification for why am I spending companies' money, clients' money, whatever the case may be. And it has to be a good reason, generally, for that expenditure. And I think, you know, another paragraph, another process to explain why we're doing this. And I have every confidence that we do have that explanation, but to put it on black and white so people can see it, so people can understand why we're doing it, I think would give people more comfort even during the budgetary process that we're spending their money wisely, that, you know, we're doing everything we can to do run this government as efficiently as possible. So that's my suggestion.
Okay. The only other comment that I wanted to make is I see that the way this was laid out, it was a piggyback, and despite having a piggyback, you don't have to get 3 quotes, but I see that was put in there, so I appreciate that. But the only other thing I was going to suggest is it's my understanding, if you're going to say that it's a piggyback, the only other thing I wanted to know is the source of the piggyback, what kind of state contract you were going off of, because I just wanted to know the source of where you got the pricing from off the piggyback.
It's the Florida, it's called the Department of Management Services, which is I guess a sister list to the Florida Sheriff's Association.
Okay.
Sometimes it's equal to use both. What we did before, it was kind of confusing. We were using a pricing off of the sheriff's list as well as off this one, and that's not really a true piggyback. It's either one or the other one. So the one that's most beneficial from a price perspective is the one that you're presented with tonight.
And from my standpoint, the only other thing I would want on like the cover sheet is just to say what the source of the piggyback is, so when we look at it, we know exactly in future reference which list we're looking at or where the original source was for the piggyback.
It does on line 1 where it says Fort of Port Ritchie. In the print right beside of it to the right says Department of Management Services, and then there is the number underneath it. There is the reference number.
Is that what that number is?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful, thank you. That's all I was asking for.
Okay.
I didn't see that on there. I wasn't sure.
Problem solved, and I took at heart
Okay.
what
Okay.
Councilman McCleary said about going another step further and giving an explanation that would relate more directly toward the questions from Mr. Mueller. I understand it, and we'll make sure that happens in the future.
And I appreciate you putting that in there. I was looking for it.
Yes,
I didn't
sir.
see it. Okay.
Actually, I have one more question.
Yes.
It says here, and this is for my own edification for future, it says for piggyback purchases over $2,500, all rows must be filled out. Is that a City of Port Ritchie, meaning we need 3 bids? Just for my own edification.
That's a local requirement on this form. I was around when this form was originally put together years ago. Somebody understands the piggybacking. To piggyback, you must go to another governmental bid. Mm-hmm. There are 2 major sources. One is the Sheriff's Association, and the other is the state management contract, which is where the state of Florida goes out and does a lot of things, just like the sheriff's office, because you can't go out to bid on a car. I mean, if you did that, dealerships would never bid. It's too much trouble for them. So the sheriff's office does, and the Department of Management Services at the state level also does it for us smaller things. When you go out to piggyback, what you need to do is you need both the invitation to bid as well as the underlying contract. Now, I happen to know that both of these organizations have them online, so we don't present them to you. However, if anyone in finance goes to anyone for a governmental contract outside of these 2, okay, then I make them bring in all the information, because many of the other sole sources are really vendor groups. Okay, and they do it for school districts in Oklahoma and things, so I put them through, I do a much more vigorous test. But the short answer to your question is, after it's gotten through the sole source, apparently this Duval Fords and Allen J were taken off of other piggyback bids. The reason it's in here is that you would go to a local dealership, so we don't favor another. So in other words, let's say you look on the Department of Management Services and you see that it's $82,000, and you call up Ford of Port Ritchie, and they meet that bid or go lower. So you can piggyback, and the legal requirement is met. The reason there are 2 more lines is to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. Finance department wants you to pick up the phone so we don't constantly use the same dealerships.
So it is the intent to fully fill out, and even though we're going off of a piggyback to get 3
even if we did
separate
there,
proposals.
yes. So
Okay.
the short answer was, but it's a little bit of overkill, but the main reason it was put in there was to get local bids on certain things.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. It's closed for comment at this time. So we got a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. move on to the next item on council business, and that's going to be vacating the property at 8237 Hayward Lane, which is next item up for council business. I wanted to pass that for, actually, probably Mr. Matthew for explanation.
Was everyone here when we vacated Whiskey Joe's Street there? No? You were here, right? I think you were here. I don't want to get too legal here, but when you vacate property, that's the city, like a street or easements. But here, when you vacate a street, what that means is originally the street was dedicated to the city when the plat was put down. It could have been 150 years ago. The city has a right, in larger cities vacate properties all the time. Okay, we only do it maybe once every couple of years. So when someone wants to vacate a street, they'll make application to the city, and it's solely within your purview as long as you don't act arbitrary and capricious as to whether it's in the city's best interest to do so. Generally, with a street, when you vacate it, half goes to one side of the street and half goes to the other. Whenever a plat is laid down, you hear people say, oh, I own to the middle of the street. Well, they really don't, because the street was dedicated to us, but if it's ever vacated, it goes that way. What's unusual here is if you look at the sketch that was done, this is on Haywood Lane. You go down Miles off of Bay Boulevard, and Haywood is the cross street. When you hit the 2, that's where the ex-mayor lived, right? You make a right-hand turn, and that's where this is. There's a little niche at the end, like a T at the end, and on the, I guess that would be the east side of it with that lot. That was vacated a few years ago, and the ordinance here is there just to show you that. And then the owner of the one to the west of it at the corner, I believe, is asking for the vacating of the property, which, since we're on one side of the property and they're on the others, we didn't need to give consent. They want to put a building in, and they're looking for it affects the setback. Is that correct, sir? So that's what's going on. So I don't know if you have any questions about vacating. If you do decide you want to vacate it, I'll bring it back for 2 readings of an ordinance, because it needs to be done by ordinance so it can be filed with the recorder, at the recorder's office.
And just for clarification, it's my understanding that this is just by the diagram and being familiar, I've driven down there and looked at it. It looks like a little dead-end street. But half of it was already vacated at a prior council meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
And what I was trying to figure out is when they vacated one half of it, why didn't they vacate the whole thing?
I've only seen them split.
I've never seen anything where they would vacate half a road and not the other half, so it didn't make any sense to me. And I didn't know if anyone was here present when that happened to know what had happened with it. Okay.
I scratched my head when I saw it, so I was
Okay.
like, how did that happen?
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't here at that time. Can't tell you what the logic
Okay.
was there.
all right. With that, I want to open it up for council discussion, and I guess I'll start. When I looked at this, to me, it didn't make sense not to vacate the other half of the road if we've already vacated the other side, particularly in where it's situated in the city. There's really no value to the city for half a road that's at the dead end that I can see. So my humble opinion, I didn't see any reason not to vacate that little piece of property since the other half has already been done. And that was my opinion. I was going to pass it around to whoever else wants to speak.
I was going to make a motion to vacate half the street that we should have vacated 10 years ago or whatever, so.
Okay.
I second.
All right. Any need for further discussion before we
I
go?
have one question.
Okay.
Mr. Uhas, in your statement, you said if the structure does not interfere with city easement, repair, or cleaning. Does this interfere with repair, cleaning, or easement?
No, ma'am. When I inspected it, we are actually in the utility easement. We have a storm drain that actually goes out into the canal. By the description, it is, they would have to interfere with the other utilities to actually cause any problems.
There's no objection to vacating the property.
Okay. We have a motion and a second before we go any further. There is someone that signed up from the general public. Mr. Mueller, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. two questions. One, on those trucks, what are we doing with the old vehicles? Are they being traded in?
And I want to direct you, because I want you to stay
I know,
on that.
but I wanted to just make that point.
Okay.
The second piece, we're in the business of giving away property. Is there a reason why we can't sell it? Is there a reason why we can't get an inventory of all the other property that potentially needs to be vacated and get it done so that we don't have to deal with it anymore, or sell it? That might be a revenue source. I'm just looking for opportunities here. I know we got some funding issues this past budget go-round, and anything, whether it be small or large, it could be a potential opportunity for the city to capitalize on. I'm just asking you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Mr. Mueller was the only one that signed up. Show of hands for anyone else that wants to comment on this particular item. Seeing no hands, at this time I'm going to put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the next agenda item. That's going to be the police department surplus of equipment. And I'm going to pass that to Mr. Sossaman for introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is just an assortment of equipment that since his arrival, our new police chief has been inventorying things like this. There's a lot of it that's out of service, out of date, not usable, and a lot of it's damaged. I'll let the chief add to that what he might want to add, but he's asking that you declare it surplus so that we can then dispose of, and I echo Mr. Mueller's comments, if we can sell some of it, if people are willing to buy. You know, what is it, one man's trash is another man's treasure, or vice versa. So if we can pick up some dollars and cents, we'll try to do so. But Chief, if you have anything to add to it?
No, that's about it. Like I said the last time, over the next several council meetings, we will see items listed for surplus, items that should have been disposed of and or sold long ago. So that's the process we're in right now. And as I mentioned last time, if there's something of value that we think that we may be able to recoup some of that money on, we will put that up for auction.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it to council for discussion and or motion.
Motion to approve the police surplus.
Second.
Before we put it to a vote, any need for discussion amongst council?
You know, if we hang on to that Brother typewriter for another few years, that'd be a collector's item. We can make some money off that.
Could be an antique.
Just saying.
It's going up for auction.
Nobody signed up from the general public, but I want to make sure the general public has an opportunity to speak. Mr. Mueller, come on up.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I appreciate the work that's being done to kind of look at the loose ends around this department, and thank you, Chief. These are the kinds of things that gives me assurance that this city is starting to move forward in this area. To echo that benefit, potentially this would be a good opportunity to capture all these things that we're doing, selling, money's generated, and point at these success stories to potentially show, hey, we're moving forward, we're cleaning things up. These are opportunities to bring revenue into the city. We're cashing in on these loose ends, those items that have value. And it's a good story. I think you ought to look at an opportunity to capitalize that and potentially put a report together identifying the things that we're selling, getting rid of, cleaning up, and at the end of the year, we'll have a success story here of all the cars and junk that we've liquidated. Just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Anyone else want to comment? Seeing no hands at this time, let's put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the next item. We're going to go to the police department surplus of impound vehicles. I'm also going to pass that to Mr. Sossaman.
Thank you again, Mayor. There is a list in your materials tonight. Tampa Machine Auction will actually be the company that the city has used in the past. There's a list of vehicles. I mean, it's a myriad of them. Some of them could be antiques or close to it, like that 98 Dodge or four-door. I mean, it's getting close. And then there's a 97 Ford two-door. I actually have an old 89 vehicle myself that I still drive. It's serviceable. So they can be retrofitted. I don't drive it often, but when I drive it, it fires up. I just have to disconnect the battery, and I've got a quick connect, but that's just a personal side. But my recommendation with the chief, these are all ones that we've had are impounded. If you look behind our building through the fence, you can see that he's pretty well full. So we're expecting, I guess, sometime within the next couple of weeks, our new 6 cruisers that will come in. So this will give them a better place to operate. So I'd like to echo what the chief has recommended to me, is that you consider declaring these surplus, which means they will be sold. Hopefully we'll make some dollars off of them that we could then come back to you and report at a later date.
Thank you. The only question that I had is, I know in the past when we've done this, there's always notice requirements and some other legal requirements that have to be done before we can put these up. And I just wanted to make sure that all those requirements have been met.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We changed the ordinance last year, I think before the two new council people were here, that I signed an order and I review that all the notices went out, okay, and I check the certified mails, the UPS slips and everything like that. So there's a filing process. I'm the last one in it and I check it.
Okay, so we're good. So we're good in that department. All right, very well, thank you. That's the only issue or question that I had about this. With that, I wanted to open up for discussion and/or motion.
I do have a question on the total impound cost to recover. Are we looking to that be the minimum bid per vehicle? How does that work? I'm not familiar.
I'll have to do some more research on that, but that is my understanding as well. It's hard to tell whenever you go to auction what you're going to get out of it. So that's just a ballpark at this point.
I have a question as well. Yep. Have we ever looked at to see if there's another game in town besides the Tampa Machinery auction for these vehicles? Are there other outlets who may want more of our business, and maybe there's a better rate to go that way?
There could be other outlets. I'm not aware of all of them, but I'm sure there's a few out there.
Could that be something we can look into and make sure we're getting a good shake on that?
We could do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you table it tonight, bring it back at the.
I'm fine with these vehicles for now, but in the future, as we move forward, I'd like to have maybe other people that we can get rates from, or see where we can get our best dollar.
All right, sir. Understood.
Actually, I have a question to that. And do they have to be auctioned, or can we sell them to a reseller at a set amount? Kind of keying off of that, instead of taking our chances at the auction, is there someone who will give us, I don't know, $2,500 per car or whatever across the board? Or is that even legal, I guess?
I used to have that memorized, but I highly doubt if you can. It's going to have to go to an auction of some type, an open sale of some type. These rates on the bottom here are rates that are set by maximum rates by statute that we're leaning these vehicles, okay? So that's the most of a lien that we can have, all right? So it's not like someone else is going to charge less or more. This isn't money someone's charging us here. This is money we're charging them.
Right, so like the point he brought up about, is that the minimum bid then, when you make sure we're getting our
No,
money?
it's not. It's just going to go up. It might sell for $300. We'll get $300. If it's above that, they're going to get that money.
The auction gets that money?
Yes.
If it's above the $1,700?
I believe so. That's our storage
so
rate.
we're locked in at basically a $1,700.
Do we get the money above that, or is that the max we're getting, Chief? I can't remember. I'd have to check, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check on that one.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
have to
wanna
check.
give
We
you
might, we
bad
might get it all since they forfeited it, but I'd have to check that. But what I guess when you were saying these rates, these are
No, I
set
meant the
rates.
rates, I meant somebody would just we'd have a better opportunity to make more, is that basically what I was trying
A
to
better
get at?
auction, yes. That's
Yeah.
what you could always shop to a
Shop
better
our
auction.
auctioneers.
I mean-
Yeah.
I don't know what a 2018 Tao is, but I'm sure we can get more than $1,700 for it.
It's a motor scooter, I think.
Is it?
Probably brand new $1,700.
So,
But the
Okay, I'll use
27,
a
but the
2008
2017 Chevrolet that's in
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
I would think would be more than 1,700.
The reason that we're in this position is because of some activity that took place in this city several years ago that went up before FDLE. This is our transparent way of dealing with it right now. But if there's a better way, we should be open to it, that's
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. But that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and we're not selling the cars outright because of that FDLE case.
And even if it's 3 bidders come in and bid for the lot of them, or whatever the case may, whatever
The thing
maintains
is,
transparency, I'm all for it.
We would have to have some kind of outside agency do that for us, because when we've handled this in-house before is the reason why we had a problem.
We did bad things.
We did bad things, yes,
Okay.
and we got caught.
but I like the idea of an auction. It's just much cleaner. The only issue is maybe there's a better auction. So, but I don't see any motivation to move away from the auction because the exposure to the city doesn't outweigh the little bit extra you may get. So,
I guess the question is, have we made anything on previous auctions, or have we
No.
just barely broken even?
No.
We usually lose money on
We
auctions?
lose money
Expenses from what I understand.
if we're lucky.
Well, I don't like costing more money to get rid of other things. We're better off trashing them and scrapping them at that point.
No, that's 55
yep,
cents.
we'll go to the public in a minute. Once council's
Could I
done.
just explain, when you say cover our expenses, that's kind of was my point with these numbers. That's our lot in the back, okay? And this is what we're charging, okay? It doesn't cost us anything, it's our lot. Okay, so every dime you get,
That's revenue.
the only expenses you have are the certified mails going out and things. Okay. Yeah, and transportation costs down to there. So you how much money you make on all of these, you could run the numbers, but you get money. And some of these later model vehicles still have liens on them. Okay, they get paid first. They just haven't picked them up. Usually they'll
But
be
it's
bid.
not a big money maker.
No, it's not. You're going to get $400 or $500 in each one of these cars, but it adds up. I mean, you can run the numbers, but
Well, the number of cards seems to be increasing, and that makes it
Yeah.
add up.
It does. I guess my point is that this isn't, they're being stored here in our lot, okay, so the storage fees. So we get a certain amount of money from this. You could run numbers, but it's not like this is something somebody's charging us. This is what we're charging them.
I just want more money, that's all.
So,
We all do.
Yeah, you might be able to. I'm just, so
Yeah.
everybody understands what you're talking about.
what I was looking for, what I was asking the panel, the council for, is whether or not there was a motion. Was there a motion already made? Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I thought we made the second.
There's two different surplus.
Motion to approve the list of vehicles from the police department as surplus property and offered for sale through Tampa Bent Machinery Auction.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Before we go any further, I did see some hands up, so I did want to address the public. Come on up.
Mike Grimes, 5440 Quist. I'm in the auto industry. Tampa Machine Auction, in my opinion, is going to be your best option. Jim's right. Send it to the auction. Don't get involved with it. It's going to cost you more headache than what it's worth. I will tell you this. You're going to have to pay a transport fee to get it from here to there. You're going to have to pay an auction fee for them to sell it. And then the difference will come back to the city. What he's doing is getting rid of blight. It's a problem. Get rid of it, move on to something else, because all it's gonna do is just pile up more trash in your backyard. So you've got Mannheim you can explore, you got Odessa, but I can tell you right now, Tampa Machine Auction, in my opinion, is gonna be your best. Don't try to public sell it. Do what he says, put them on a truck, send them down the road, go on with your day. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
And that raises another question, real quick, if I could, Mayor. The transports to the machinery auction, maybe that's something else we could look at. I mean, there's a lot of towing companies around the area. Could they bid on our business to move those?
I suspect, although I don't know, Ms. Sussman could look into it, that that's all part of Tampa Machinery's deal. We're going to auction it off. We take a certain percentage fee for auctioning them, and they charge us for transporting them down there. That's all. There's a contract regarding that somewhere. Okay. And I just know that Chief Lovering had set this into effect, and right after we had problems, the FDLE was here. They had 5,000 documents. I have a 200-page report if anybody would like to see. 3 people were showing up in the back here 5 years ago and selling it to people in the police department, relatives, ex-mayors, things like that. It's a very serious matter.
I read it.
And so that's why we're very sensitive about this issue. But whatever the deal is, it could be, Councilman, that perhaps we could, somehow figure out a way
I'm
to
just
have
saying
it
if they're
shipped down
charging
there.
us $200 a car to move it, we can put that out for bid for all these local
That's
tow
right.
companies.
Yeah, how they do that and what the charges are, Mr. Sussman can give you that to you.
All right, Lynn, thank you.
I just think it's part of a whole package
It could
deal, is
be.
my guess, so I don't know.
So we have a motion, a second. I'm going to put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to go on to the discussion of opening City Hall to the general public. And that I was going to pass to Mr. Sossaman.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope I didn't beat it to death, but I laid out a lot of the executive orders that Governor DeSantis has passed going back a number of months. And I know he passed one recently, which still it declared, well, his state of emergency was still extended until November the 1st, which is coming up like a bullet, if you will. So I think you all made a decision way back when. We still have to pay attention to the social distancing like we're practicing tonight, probably at least for the next meeting. But you could go ahead tonight and allow us to open up, at your discretion, obviously, this building to the general public. We've had a lot of requests. My good friend, Mr. Mueller, asks me quite often, as do others here in the community, when we're going to open back up. So I would just ask you to, you've got the executive orders there. You've got the right to do it, to make that decision tonight and move forward. We know that I guess we're back at 100% in restaurants and other places. So personally, I don't see a reason to continue to keep this building closed to the public. The drive-through obviously does work. People come by, they talk, and they'll ask from time to time, because I'm over there sometimes seeing some of those folks to see what's happening on different issues. So I would just ask you to have a discussion tonight, and I will not be upset if you say let's open up on a certain date, positive.
Thank you, Mr. Sossaman. Kind of an interesting issue, and it's indicative of what's going on in our community and society, and it's nice that this is coming up, because in the last couple of weeks I've been actually going to court in person, in a courtroom, podium, clerks there, bailiffs there, clients are there. So it's nice to see that other governmental agencies are reopening, not just this for discussion, but it's nice to see there's some administrative orders for courthouses and other state buildings. So I'm in favor of opening City Hall as long as we can meet any standards. I know, for example, in the courthouse, they have a little stripe every 6 foot if you're waiting in a line somewhere, that sort of thing. But other than that, there's it's starting to become wide open. So I personally am in favor of opening City Hall and allowing the public back in. And open it for discussion.
Does this need a motion, or is it a consent?
This is action deemed appropriate. I'm personally tired of the COVID thing. Let's open up and get back to business.
I would like a vote on it, since technically an emergency was declared by Mr. Sossaman, and you have the authority to regulate his emergency, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd rather see a vote. It'd be a simple vote, you know, open City Hall.
Is there a recommendation to frame the motion, i.e. a certain date and time?
I'd like a motion, because right now, the closing of City Hall was done by Mr. Sossaman under his emergency powers. If you want to open City Hall, just make a motion. We want to open City Halls pursuant to social distancing. That's all I think you'd need.
Motion to open City Hall?
On October 19th.
There you go.
Works for me.
There we go.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any comments from the general public? Mr. Mueller, come on up.
He doesn't like October 19th.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Thank you all for considering this. I think it needs to go beyond City Hall. We still got tables at the parks
next
that are
agenda.
closed.
That's the next agenda item.
Okay. Well, let's get it all on one and do it once. Thank you.
Nah, that would be too easy.
We're going to open the bathrooms too in the building, right? I was being sarcastic. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any other comments from the general public? Any other comments from council? Put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, which moves us to the next item, which is the discussion on opening the city park amenities, which include picnic tables. I'll pass that to Mr. Sossaman.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, it would. It would include all the park amenities. As you know, right now, a few weeks ago, you authorized us to go ahead and open up the bathrooms. We've had folks since then that I guess took that to mean that everything was open, which obviously it wasn't. So for the same reasons you just considered in terms of opening this building, I would recommend that you go ahead on a motion and vote on a date positive. I think Councilman McCleary said the 19th for this building. So if you could either do it the same day, or you could do it, authorize it within the next few days.
Thank you, Mr. Sossaman.
If you did it, thank you, sir, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but if you actually did it this coming Friday, a few days from now, that would give staff a time to get everything set up, and then people could enjoy the weekend. Hopefully we would have a nice sunny weekend with mild weather, and they could get out and enjoy the fullness, if you will, of the offerings park-wise that Port Richey has to put forth.
What's Friday, the 15th? 16th?
16.
Okay. So looking for a motion to open park amenities on October 16th.
Open park amenities on the 16th.
Second.
There's some people that signed up for this. We have a motion, a second. Pat Rogers, anything? Any show of hands? Seeing no hands, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item up is going to be board and committees, 2020, 2021, and membership renewals, and I'm going to pass that to Mr. Sossaman.
I'm actually going to ask the gentleman to my right to talk a little bit about it. Sal loves to talk. He hasn't told me he feels left out, but I can tell by that smile on his face that he'd like to get a few comments in, and we have had some folks step forward. What do you think, Sal?
For council approval, once a year that we send out letters to all board and committee members asking if they want to continue staying on that board and committee for the following year. The list that's presented is the current list of all people that have returned forms to me, and that is the list to go on for the following year. We do have increase in vacancies in some of our key boards and committees, so I just wanted to make that note. But the following item will be to fill one of those positions.
Okay. Just going to open it up for discussion.
Why do we have two inactive committees, or inactive board and inactive committee?
And please forgive me, I don't have a complete agenda in front of me. Just one moment. Thank you. The Historic Commission, we have not had a meeting. I can go back and find out when the last time we had a meeting. It was way before me. It's been quite some time. The Planning and the Personnel Review Board also has not met, I believe, since 2014. So they are existing boards. We have to include them, but they're inactive. We've had no participation or request to hold meetings.
Thank you. One of the comments that I just wanted to make is we're kind of blessed in this city that we have so many people, citizens that spend a lot of time to better the community, and they do that by volunteering time and just different committees. So I wanted to thank all the people that are involved in that and all the various committees. It's greatly appreciated by myself and the rest of the council and the city as a whole and the people as a whole. So that was kind of my comment. That having been said, I wanted to open it back for discussion. I just wanted to just put that out there that I was appreciative of all the people that volunteer their time to serve.
On the Port Authority Board, there's a vacant position. It's the City Council liaison. We're going to appoint someone from the City Council to be on that board?
There's an issue with that. I'm probably going to have to discuss this with the city attorney at length. As far as the code is concerned, and this happened many years ago, that there was council request to start attending as a council liaison. In the code, there's only 3 members to the Port Authority Board. The council liaison was a created position by the council several years ago to suggest them attending these meetings. But in the code, there's only 3 members to the Port Authority Board. It's not really a mandated position.
Actually, I thought our charter said a council member cannot be on a board.
That is something else I'd have to, take a look at. I don't, as far as like, for instance, I've not seen it, but I could look more into the code.
I think it's in the charter that we can't be on a board, we can be on a committee, not a board.
That's my recollection.
So we can't have a liaison to the board, because then you're a member of the board, theoretically.
Technically, yes. You can ask someone to just say,
You can show up, I mean, yeah, there's nothing saying you can't show up, it's just you can't be a board member.
yeah, the Port Authority Board's a charter board. Yeah. Wouldn't be a formal position, no.
Motion to approve the board and committee member list for the 2021 year.
Second.
Before we go any further, I see that there was one person signed up. Ms. Rogers, welcome. Come on up to the podium.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. As a past member of Planning and Zoning and a current member of Board of Adjustments, I would like to ask if it was possible that we could have at least one meeting a year, whether there's any set things, just so that members would know that we could go through rules, regulations, things.
I think that's a great,
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
can.
the board would call it.
Okay.
The answer is yes. If you guys want to meet, you guys can meet.
Okay.
Of course. Any other comments from the general public? Seeing no hands, we got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is going to be appointment of members to boards and committees. I'm going to pass that over to Sal, I guess. Is that Sal for introduction on that?
This is going to become common.
Or is it Mr. Sossaman?
If you want me to, I could just take over for the rest of the evening. Isn't it?
Go right ahead. I love to hear
No,
you.
it's fine.
I didn't know who was doing this agenda item.
I'll handle
Sorry.
this one.
Okay.
It's fine. For council consideration is the appointment of new member Lisa Burke to the Planning and Zoning Board. The City Council action is deemed appropriate. Lisa Burke is currently a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you. But I don't see any, unless the city attorney has something to add, I don't have any issue with her being a part of this board.
I don't think so. I'd have to check it, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's a problem. But it's an advisory board. I'll just double check theirs. You can vote on it, and if it's a problem, I'll bring it back.
Well,
The only question I had, was there anyone with any other interest other than her, or was she the only one that applied?
No, she was the only one that submitted for tonight's presentation. I have no others to be presented,
Right.
to date.
Fantastic, okay. That's all, that's the only question I had, so I'll open it for discussion and/or motion.
I make a motion that we appoint Lisa Burke to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
We got a motion, a second, open to general public for comment, questions. Seeing no hands, put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The last item is also going to go to our city clerk, Sal. It's going to be the city manager search discussion. And I'm going to pass that over to him for a brief introduction.
For city council discussion is an update on the city manager search from Colin Bassinger and Associates. In the agenda is included a memo and a memorandum which was presented to you via email, but we included hard copies tonight of the 3 new applicants that they submitted, including Mr. Sossaman.
Thank you. I wanted to open on this particular item, and the reason I wanted to open is I've just received a bunch of new materials, and I've only had limited time to kind of read through everything and do additional research. What I would like to do is set this off 2 weeks from now to give me time to review all this. And then the other reason is one of the people that we hired was Colin Basinger, who would be able to appear next week and may be able to answer questions, because he's already interviewed some of these folks. He's talked to these people. He's vetted them very carefully. So I wanted to be able to review this and have him available for any questions that we may have as a board or council for any additional information. So I didn't know if anyone had any issues with setting this off just for 2 weeks for those various reasons. I don't know if you guys have had time to read through everything. Okay. So.
I read it digitally, but that's fine.
Okay. So we have, you're okay setting it off 2 weeks from now, just passing it?
2 weeks.
Can I ask a question? How much of this is duplicate? How much of this is duplicate from what you've
No.
already sent?
No, this is all new.
This
These
is
is all
duplicate.
brand new.
Those are three more applicants included. There's 2 brand new ones, and then of course including
That
Mr.
was
Sossaman's.
disappointing answer.
Sal sent this digitally 3 days ago or whatever it was. So this is the hard copy of what was sent out digitally 3 days ago.
Okay, so this is the 3 new applicants
Yeah,
that we
correct.
have. And we have the other ones at home right now.
Yes.
Correct.
Darn it.
And-
Sorry, no duplicate.
And just for an update, we'll have 6 total to discuss, because out of the 4 that were already there, 1 took a job in another city, from what I understand.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So we'll be down to 6. We'll have these 3 new ones plus the 3 that we've already reviewed.
Before we table this, though, I think Colin sent to each of us today a recommended path for nomination of the candidates. Maybe we do have that discussion on how we want to present this next week, so it's that much more efficient. I know he included as part of an email a nomination form, for lack of a better term, and suggested that each council member select 4 possible candidates for that, and then we kind of combine those and see where the overlapping is and interview those candidates. Maybe instead of talking about the individual candidates tonight, we talk about the process from this point forward, so we are that much ahead in 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. Do we want to go with the path that Mr. Bersinger, I probably said his name wrong, suggested for the nomination and suggested for the path forward, or do we want to introduce something else, or are we going to suggest putting that discussion off as well?
I wanted to put that discussion off because it may depend on what we read about the 3 new people. And one of the things when I talked to, because I talked to Colin Basinger today, he called me and I had at least a moment to speak with him about all this. he will, I think, not only be able to give us additional information on all the different candidates, but he may have suggestions which we may want to consider in terms of how we do it. So I wanted him present for that discussion too, because he's done this a ton of times, we haven't, so I kind of I valued his opinion, and as we discussed it, I want to be able to bounce questions off him to, make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
That's my personal feel, but if you guys want to discuss how we're going to select, that's fine. That's just my take. I'd rather have him, because I think he'll put a presentation together for us next week.
I was going to say,
Right.
something. If he comes and gives us a presentation on how to do the formatting like we were talking about,
Correct.
I think that'll help us move forward easier.
When I spoke to him today, because I also spoke to him today, the whole idea behind the straw poll, which is what you were referring to, was to at least come up with 4 candidates out of the 6, and then we could make decisions regarding that. He was just suggesting narrowing it down to the 4 when I talked to him today. I just don't see how with this new information that we can just, forget about these 3 guys and make our decision on the others.
Maybe,
So we have to
yeah.
take this into serious consideration before we even straw poll.
Well, I'm not saying that we fill out the straw poll at this meeting. I would say maybe next meeting we come prepared to fill out the straw poll of 4
Exactly.
candidates.
Exactly.
And then at least we're that much farther ahead.
Exactly. I think that's the better way to do it, because with the new information, we can't possibly make a fair decision without taking that into consideration.
So we all agreed to at least come next week with our 4 favorites.
2 weeks
2 weeks.
Yes.
With our 4 favorites.
with their
Yes.
4 favorites.
But it may change depending on his presentation too, so I want to watch his presentation before I put it in.
Well, then knock it down
Well,
to 3. Well, no,
we
you're
don't
not
have
going
to put it in
You're
until
not going to walk
after
in the
his
door. I'm not going to take it from you
presentation.
as soon as you walk in the door.
But yes, I agree, that's the direction we're headed with this.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So by consensus, we move it
2 weeks.
to 2 weeks from now, which I think is the 27th? Okay, and then the other issue is, I think in speaking with him, when I chatted with him, he could only kind of appear remotely, which was going to be by Zoom. I didn't know if we have the technological capabilities to have a screen that we can all see, so we can chat with him and watch a presentation.
A Skype type of presentation?
Correct. I didn't know if we have the
Can we do
capability to
that?
set that up.
I'll definitely talk to IT about setting up, at least so we can see it on the wall, and do a
Okay.
video Zoom. Right now, at my station, I can do, the audio, as I've done before.
Okay.
But we'll definitely look into, doing a presentation that way, so we
Okay.
can via Zoom.
That way, if there's any exhibits that he wants to show or hold up, we'll be able to see it.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I was asking. Is everyone okay with that as well?
Yes.
Okay. So let's table item 11. And I think that concludes, well, there were people that signed up, but we didn't motion or second. So when we table this, I wanted to know if we can invite Mr. Grimes to the next meeting when we discuss all the candidates. Is that okay? Okay.
Just one more point I wanted to ask council. Mr. McClary, Councilman McClary pointed this out, is that should we just continue this item on each agenda until this selection has been made?
That would be my intent.
I mean, I just
Yes.
kind of figured, instead of tabling it, that we just keep this item on until a selection is made.
Correct.
Okay.
With that, it closes out council business. I want to move on to old business. The old business that I wanted to touch on is kind of exciting for the city. We've been fortunate enough to save enough money to order police cars, police equipment for the cars, as well as fire truck. And I wanted to know the status, at least of the police cars, because I know those have been in the works for a while.
Yes, the vehicles are in Florida and via Dana's, so we've already got the equipment that you see over to them for installation. So we're still on schedule to get them on as previously noted.
So we have the cars, the equipment being installed, and what are they getting striped and all that good stuff?
Yes, we're sending the vendor over there to do the striping.
Okay. Is there an estimated completion date?
It's going to be up to Dana, but they were saying somewhere like a 2-week timeframe, so we should get them before the end of the month, hopefully.
Okay, so towards the end of the month then. Fantastic. I think the fire truck was the other issue. I didn't know if we had any idea when that was.
Well, the fire truck, I haven't received any indication otherwise, but it was scheduled for sometime around mid-November. So I'm hoping that it could be here, before Thanksgiving. And I've already talked to the chief that I'd like to notify each of the council members when it arrives, so that if you'd like to take a look at your new vehicle, you're free to do so. And I'll go ahead and mention to our chief the same thing with the new police cars. Once they come in fully equipped and striped, if you will, and then let everybody know. So, like I said, by selling these things over the impound yard, hopefully make some coins that will go into the treasury, if you will, and then also have more room for the new police cars that hopefully the citizens will appreciate.
Very good. The only other question that I had was along the lines with the cars. We just had the CAD system in place, which I think you have new computers for that as well. So those will all be installed in the new car. So along with the new cars, we'll have the new CAD and everything should be up and running towards the end of the month.
Yes, we were talking to Joshua Gregory, who's the liaison with Pasco, and we should be able to go live Tuesday, the 20th. It's just one other thing from FDLE, which should be, according to FDLE, fast and easy to make the change over. It has to do with IP addresses, mnemonics, and things of that nature. But the 20th should be the target date to go live.
Oh, very good. Okay, that sounds very good. Sounds good. That's all I had for old business. I wanted to start with Mr. Kinsella and work around the other way.
Nothing.
I have nothing.
You covered my questions on the CAD system. So the 20th, it's going to be live. It's the end of it. That's our end date.
I was afraid to
We'll
ask.
never talk about it again. We're going to get reports every month from the police department.
Yes, it'll be a lot easier to pull than the way we're doing it right now, as
Okay.
far as the monthly data.
So hopefully we can start getting monthly reports from each one of the departments on the first meeting of the month, maybe. Monthly reports from all our department heads letting us know what's going on in the city.
Absolutely, because I know now you're getting the weekly reports, hopefully.
Well, I don't want it weekly. I just want once a month synopsis. I don't want to read any more than I already have to.
Okay. If that's a consensus of the city council, once a month, we'll commence that operation. And because some things don't change, some do. But I think
just a general report so that the public has an idea of what's going on.
All right.
In our departments, that nobody's sitting around drinking coffee or eating donuts.
Oh,
okay. If you had,
Ouch.
oh
wow.
I'm sure that was directed at utilities, right?
Was that a cop joke?
I was looking over there. No, I was looking over there. I've seen them at Duncan.
you should have seen Sean earlier. I can pick on him. He's bigger than me. But after doing some of the work he was doing, he walked in my office about 3:30 and for a report that he does lots of afternoons and looking at some of the lift stations and what kind of condition they're in. I'm not going to go into gory details, but part of that infrastructure we're looking at is rebuilding some of them because some of them are quite antiquated, and I'm not going to say they're falling apart, but they're starting to fall apart.
They're falling apart.
So before that happens, we definitely need to rebuild, and we're going to be bringing to you in the not too distant future some engineering reports and estimates to go forward with exactly that.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know we mentioned this previously about putting together the capital improvement plan that overall in the rating system for each respective fund, so we can start analyzing what needs to be done, lift station improvements, et cetera, and establish a rating system so we know how best to budget in future items, because if you have 4 or 5 projects that have a high risk of failure and a high need for replacement, we know then from a council perspective we need to start budgeting quite a bit of funds to address these. So I know we were talking about it in a capital improvement plan overall from a citywide perspective, and from a fund perspective, I'd like to see that kind of jointly with the need, when you're bringing new projects in, all right, well, here's where it fits within our capital improvement plan or our capital replacement plan, so we can kind of judge and confirm the need overall for that. So I know we had mentioned that in previous meetings, and I know you had mentioned you were starting to put that together, but that to me, they're all kind of intertwined with one another. We have this capital needs, but where does it fall with respect to other projects that may or may not be needed for the city? So that was kind of my comment.
Well, that's a great idea, and part of what I've talked to the different department heads about is to rank them, if you will, some kind of priority system that would make sense. We know whether something's almost an immediate need that we need to do year one, as opposed to others that can go out to a more intermediate time frame, say a year 3 to a year 5.
I mean, from a building perspective, and I can speak to that, most of have a 5-year capital and then a 10-year capital improvement plan, and rated over the sequence, 5 years being the more necessary items, and then rate it within each of those 2 time frames. So just as a suggestion.
I was going to pass it over to Mr. Dittmer.
Well, since we beat the CAD horse to death, I won't ask on that one. But there has been a large boat at Nix Park for several days. I don't know if anybody's noticed it sitting in, you've noticed it, sitting there for days on end now. I went by, and it's probably a good 27-foot boat. It's a large boat sitting there on a trailer broken down. I went back by today, it was still there. They had wrote a note on it that they were getting parts and they'd be back on Monday the 12th. Well, being Tuesday the 13th, we may need to look at having that removed, because it looks like it could be a safety hazard as well. It's blocked up with rocks underneath the tires. So if somebody would please, Chief, take a look at that for us, I'd appreciate it. That's all I had.
I had a couple other things that I forgot when I went into old business. One is when I was driving over 19, heading southbound on 19, where you get to the bridge, going over the Cody River. I saw that there was all kinds of graffiti on the bridge. Someone had spray painted. It looked like some kind of signs and stuff actually on the bridge. You can see it as you're going down. And I didn't know if we could look at that and potentially clean that up. That was just real recently I saw that. And then there's some graffiti that's on the bridge where you can see it from the road, and then there's some that is on the inside when you walk down the sidewalk on the inside. And I didn't know if anyone was aware of that. I just wanted to make you aware that that was out there.
Public Works is actually taking care of a few of those issues really recently. We had they used some blood red paint, but on that bridge, it's not our bridge, but I'm like, yeah.
That's DOT? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I just saw it.
We can report it to them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just saw it. I wanted to let you know that it's something that I saw. The other thing that I don't think we've really talked about in a while, we used to get presentations on some money that we had invested, and it was a ways back, but I haven't seen a presentation. It was supposed to be quarterly, I think. So I wanted to get back to that because we haven't seen anything with that for a while, and I didn't want to forget about it. I know that it was still out there, and there was some budget issues or finance issues with it, but I wanted to address that sooner than later.
We'll start doing a quarterly report for you on our investments. All of them, the operating accounts. You know, essentially you've got two investments that are up in Tallahassee, two different funds they have, and then we've got the operating account at PNC. So we'll give you a report on all three of those. And since Tony's here tonight, she's our finance director, she definitely will not let me forget about it. We'll put it together and bring it to you. Maybe something at the next meeting. If not the 27th, then the first one in November, if that's okay.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. I didn't want to because I know that George is, I don't know if he's still working or advising for the city or whatnot, but
George, I hate to say, but his father passed away recently, and so his dad's wishes were, he was here in Florida, up in Citrus County in a nursing home / I guess assisted living center, and he passed away, so George had to fly him up there and take care of that business. He's back in Florida now, and we'll probably use him sparingly going forward, as he's agreed to do some of the things that you all were talking about tonight, setting up new accounts, because heretofore, whenever you've asked a question, it's been difficult to answer because everything essentially is except for those two accounts up in even there, the funds were not separated according to the way that I would separate them. So we're working toward that end, and hopefully we'll get it done sometime either later this month or in early November, so that we'll be able to report to you when you ask a question about, well, what's in this fund or that fund. We'll be able to do it without him not hauling.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I had. Any other comments from the council? That having been said, looking for motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.